There we are. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Killer Author Club. We are so happy to be welcoming Jessica Knoll to the club. We have her here on a Monday. That's why we're so excited because we usually are on Tuesdays, but we're like, for Jessica, we'll come here on a Monday. So will she survive? Will we? We have tons to talk about. So grab your favorite cocktail, your list of questions, and we'll see you on the flip side. Oh, and by the way, we have a new Killer Author Club music written by my son, who's a singer, songwriter, producer in LA. And so, welcome to the new debut of the Killer Author Club song.
Welcome to the Killer Author Club. 3 best-selling authors talking about killing, of the fictional kind, with the best thriller and suspense authors in the business. Killer conversations, killer cocktails, and killer guests, with your hosts, Kimberly Bell, Heather Gutenkopf, and Kara Ruda. This is the Killer Author Club.
Ta-da! Our new song we're very excited about. Okay, so hello everybody to all the new members and to the Killer Author Club OGs on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, wherever you're watching. We're so excited to have you here. Again, I'm Killer Kara Ruda.
I'm Killer Kimberly Bell.
And I'm Killer Heather Gutenkopf.
And I'm finally back from my travels, and I'm so excited to welcome Killer Jessica to the Killer Clubhouse. We'll be talking about bright young women, and like always, we've got tons of killer fun planned for you tonight. A reminder to drop all your questions in the comments, and we will be scouring them to get to as many as we can. So Heather, could you please introduce our killer guest?
It would be my honor. Jessica Knoll is a New York Times bestselling author of Bright Young Women, The Favorite Sister, and Luckiest Girl Alive, now a major motion picture from Netflix starring Mila Kunis. She has been a senior editor at Cosmo and the articles editor at Self. She grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia and graduated from the Shipley School in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, and from Hobart and William Smith Colleges in Geneva, New York. She lives in Los Angeles with her husband and their bulldog, Franklin. So congratulations, Lauren and Jessica, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm just laughing because I have a human baby now too, but it's so funny that my old bio doesn't mention her, just my bulldog. I think
well, congratulations on the new human.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Thanks.
Aww.
Very fun. So we are going to dive into great detail into the book very soon. But for now, can you give us a brief elevator pitch about Bright Young Women?
Yeah, so Bright Young Women is a fictional reimagining of the lives of the women who did and did not survive one of our country's most famous serial killers. There have been many movies and books written about this particular killer who was active really all over the country, from the Pacific Northwest all the way to the Panhandle of Florida in the 1970s. And I just found that once I started digging into the case, that there wasn't a lot that we knew about the victims. And I started imagining what it must have been like for them. And from there, Bright Young Women was born.
Yes, so good. And we have tons of questions for you about the book. So everybody out there, don't forget to drop your questions into the comments to add to our list. But first, it's time to talk about this episode's very special drink. Kimberly?
Right. So as you know, the killers love our cocktails and mocktails and tasty drinks. So every episode we ask our killer guests to come equipped with their favorite and recipes for all the drinks and the cocktails that have come before tonight are at killerauthorclub.com under the tab Killer Cocktails. But tonight, Jessica chose a gin martini with olives, yum, as her special drink. Jessica, can you tell us why?
Well, I wish I was drinking a gin martini with olives right now. Instead, I have a big tumbler of water that I'm still sweating from trying to do bath time and feed the dog and everything. But when it's still early here, so when I get off the call, it's still time. Yeah, I'm a recent gin convert. I used to be a vodka martini drinker, and my husband lured me over to the dark side with gin, and now I just really love the kind of floral essence of it. And I guess it feels like kind of, my book is set in the 70s. I guess a gin martini feels kind of like classic and throwback. So in that way, it ties to the book.
Love it.
I love it. Well, it sounds delicious. I'm drinking tea as well, so I'm non-alcoholic tonight. But cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Water too. We're so boring tonight.
I know.
Or maybe healthy. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, so the Killers and I started the Killer Author Club 2 years ago so that readers like you can interact with some of the best suspense and thriller authors in the business. Our summer and fall lineup includes Robert Dugoni, Sandra Block, Geneva Rose, and so many more. For dates, times, past episodes, etc., go to killerauthorclub.com. But tonight we're here to talk about Bright Young Women, Jessica Knoll's brilliant novel based on the true story. Okay, a New York Times notable book of 2023, a New York Times Editor's Choice, an instant New York Times bestseller, a Goodreads Choice Award finalist, named a Best Book of the Year by NPR, The Washington Post, Harper's Bazaar, Kirkus Reviews, Crime Reads, Book List, and more, an Edgar Award finalist for Best Novel. Bright Young Women doesn't put its focus on the murderer. It's more interested in his victims and the survivors who are on a mission to catch him before he kills again. That's from Time Magazine. A stunning, engaging version of the myth and the true crime genre. That's Kirkus Starred Review. There's so many in here. I should read them all. We'll be here. We won't even be able to talk about it. Let's just suffice it to say that everyone loved it, including the three of us. So, Jessica, you're obviously a very accomplished killer. Now we need to know your answer to the killer question: where do you kill?
So I interpreted this question as like, where do you kind of slay?
I love that.
I love it too.
And I just like really slay in the kitchen. I'm a really, really good cook. And I love to cook. It's like one of my favorite hobbies. And I guess if I had to commit a murder, there's a way to do that with your cooking. And actually, there's something kind of adjacent to that happens in the book. So watch out when you come to my house for dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Better not piss me off.
Yeah. Dangerous.
What's your specialty?
So
what do you love to make?
Well, I love making pasta, and I like pasta because it feels so easy to experiment with. Like you can't mess up the sauces or anything you want to add to it. And in the summer, my absolute favorite thing to make is I make a tomato sauce with like all the fresh cherry tomatoes from the farmer's market. They're so good right now. And I just blister them in a pan with olive oil, garlic, and butter. And then the secret ingredient is like a tablespoon or two of balsamic vinegar. It gives it like a really kind of like sweet, unexpected flavor. And then you just dump your pasta in, toss it with Parmesan cheese, top with fresh basil, and it's so easy and so delicious.
That sounds amazing.
That sounds so good. It just made my stomach crawl.
I'm hungry all of a sudden.
I know. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I guess we should probably talk about the book now, there, you guys. But I love the slaying cooking answer. It's perfect. Okay. And this is more a statement than a question, but I think this book should be read by everyone everywhere. When I first read it, when it first came out, I was just blown away, and that was just more of a statement than a question. Okay. So Bright Young Women is fiction, but it was inspired by true crimes against women by the serial killer we don't like to discuss. How did you come up with the idea to take the well-known events and recast them in any light? And as you were creating this story, which of the characters came to you first, or how did you discover this?
Yeah, it really was. I was kind of struggling with a idea for my third book, and I was working on something that wasn't really going anywhere. And there was a new Netflix special about this particular killer. I think it was like 2018 or 2019. And I thought that I knew everything there was to know about this killer, but when I watched it, I didn't realize that he had escaped prison twice and ended up in the Panhandle of Florida, where he attacked a sorority house, leaving 2 sisters seriously maimed and 2 others dead. And that was ultimately where he was captured and brought to justice. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that part of the story. But there was toward one of the, I think maybe in the last episode, they had archival footage of the judge when he sentenced him to die by electric chair at his trial for the murders of these sorority sisters. And it was absolutely stunning what he said to him. He said, "You're a bright young man. I would have loved to see you practice in the courtroom before me one day, but you went another way, partner. Take care. I have no ill will toward you." And that was it. And when I saw that, I was really like, wow, like I understand that we're just showing like a clip of this for this show, but I wonder if he said anything about the victims, or just imagining what it must have been like for the friends and family of the victims to be in the courtroom and hear that. And this was like pre-victim impact statements. And so I started doing a little bit of digging, and that's when I read the full transcript. Absolutely nothing was mentioned about the victims. The judge only spoke to him and kind of lamented the loss of his future as a potential lawyer, because at one point he had been in law school, and that was like highly reported on in the press as though like he was really about to become a lawyer. He'd gotten like a semester of law school under his belt, and he had to cheat on his entrance exams to even be admitted to the school. And then he like dropped out because he was so messed up that he was just hunting women all the time. But people wrote about him like he had passed the bar, and he had, like he was a summer associate, and it was nothing. He dabbled in it. So from there I started getting mad. And I think anger is always, for me at least, a good starting point for a story, because it means I'm passionate about something and can kind of see it through to the end.
Yeah. Well, and I have to admit, like because they did make him into this Casanova kind of creature, like back in the day, and all of the movies and things always glorified him for it. It's just so disturbing and eye-opening when you turned it on its head and made us realize we'd all bought into the propaganda as well, unfortunately, because that's the only side anyone showed in the media. Right. Yeah. Anyway, so in Bright Young Women, we meet two women who demand answers to questions nobody else would ask, and sorority president Pamela Shoemaker, who awakens at 3 a.m. and discovers what's happened in her sorority. And in the other storyline, we meet Tina Cannon and her roommate best friend Ruth. Could you tell us a little bit about these main characters?
So Pamela Shoemaker is the president of the sorority that is attacked, and you meet her on the night of the attack. It's just, a typical Saturday night in a sorority house. It's bustling, it's vibrant, it's full of life. The sisters are going out to parties, on dates. Some of them are staying in because they have to study, because they have important exams on Monday, and they're excited about their futures. There's just like so much life under the roof of this sorority house. And she, as you said, is awakened. Pamela is someone who is she's not very social. She doesn't like to go out very much. She's very dedicated to her studies. I found a lot of inspiration in the Tracy Flick character from Election, like just a very like kind of type A Virgo, like everything has to be clean. Everything has to be in its place. She's ahead of the curve. In every sense of the word. So she stays home to study, and she's awakened by a noise in the middle of the night. And she stumbles upon a strange man at her door, and she goes upstairs to awaken one of her sisters to be like, I think there was an intruder in the house. And at that point she sees one of her other sisters stumbling down the hall injured. And from there she starts opening the doors to all the rooms on the second floor to find out who is alive and who is dead. And initially, the police focus on something she says in her statement to them, which is that when she first saw the man at the front door, she was so surprised to see a man at the door at 3 a.m. that she mistook him for one of her friend's boyfriends. And the police fixate on that, and they like the boyfriend for this crime. And Pamela is trying to explain to them, like, it was just like a flash thought. But then I focused and I realized I'd never seen him before. And she's getting very, very frustrated because they won't listen to her. And around that time, she meets a mysterious and beautiful stranger named Tina Cannon, who offers to drive her home from the hospital. She's there visiting one of her injured sorority sisters. And in the car, she shows her the wanted poster of this famous serial killer. And she says, is this the man you saw at your front door? And oh God, now my dog is starting. Franklin, it's okay, but I have to sleep. And that was adorable. And And so she sees the wanted poster and she's like, who is this person? How do you know of him? And she said, because 4 years ago, he killed my friend Ruth. And from there, you go into Ruth's story and you follow her in the 6 months leading up to the last day of her life. And for Ruth, she's someone who, when you meet her, she's in kind of a low point in her life. She's been divorced. Her father's just died. She's moved in with her mother to kind of like help her, with kind of all of her affairs after that. And she's really just kind of a wallflower. And when she meets Tina, her whole life blossoms. And she's really on the precipice of something great on the day that she has this fated encounter with the defendant. And she doesn't get to, fulfill all of her potential, unlike what the judge said to him. He didn't really have potential to fulfill, but Ruth did.
Right. Yeah.
I was really struck by in reading just the lack of resources for the victims back in the 70s, and how these young women, and especially Pamela, how she's trying to make everything okay for her sorority sisters, and she's cleaning up the mess. She's trying to find resources. How did you learn more about the situation with victims and advocacy back in the day?
So actually, part of the story that's so incredible that is completely true, but I didn't put into the book because my book is fiction.
Mm-hmm.
One of the real sorority sisters who was there that night, based on her experiences as a victim of violent crime, and having to testify at the trial and how she was, treated by authorities, she went on to campaign for a revised Victims' Bill of Rights to be elevated to constitutional status. And so Florida adopted this Victims' Bill of Rights into the Florida Constitution in 1988, I believe, about 10 years after these crimes occurred. And since then, I think like 40 states have followed suit, but Florida was the first state to do it because of this sorority sister. And I actually just read the Bill of Rights, and it pretty clearly lays out kind of everything that they needed in the 24 hours kind of following the assault, on the attack on their house, and then everything they needed as they went to trial. And a big part of that was because this killer decided to represent himself at trial, he was within his rights to depose the sorority sisters. He was behind bars, and he dragged them all a year later from their lives to be deposed by him. They had to sit face to face to him and give them their address, their home address of where they resided. And this is a killer who escaped prison twice. And in the Victims' Bill of Rights, it now says, and if they had refused to do that, it would have been a violation of his rights. Because of the sorority sister and what's now in this Bill of Rights, it is now illegal for any defendant, even if they're representing themselves at trial, to depose one of the victims. Like, it would be a violation of the victim's rights now.
Thank goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in general, just that law enforcement is trained in how to approach victims. And a big part of that is just like, they have like a little card that they hand out to victims at violent crime scenes and say, like, this lists everything that will have resources for you, whether that's compensation, whether that's cleaning services. Because back then the sorority sisters had to clean up the blood themselves from this massacre, which is just unconscionable to think about. And she changed all of that. And that's just not a part of the story that people know.
Yeah. I'm seeing lots of questions in the comments about, do we ever name the serial killer? Now I don't remember, but
so I don't name him in the book because I feel like he's been named enough. I just call him the defendant. But I think if you read the book, it should be pretty clear.
Yeah. Agreed. And there's so much, I mean, obviously you're talking about all the research that you did into this, and there's so much out there, right, on this particular killer and everyone who was the lives that were affected by him. But how do you balance like the research into the true life crime and people involved and creating this fictional world? I mean, that must be hard to.
It was hard. I mean, Ruth is, because a lot of the victims, there isn't a lot out there about them. It's just kind of like they went missing. And I mean, not even all of kind of their disappearances were solved. Like Ruth is based on one of the Seattle victims, actually the last Seattle victim, before the killer moved on to a different part of the country, to Utah and Colorado. And there's virtually nothing out there about her, just how her, the witnesses who saw her in her last minutes. And so it kind of gave me free rein to develop a character and a story and a life that actually wasn't based in research. Like I just knew I had to get her to the place where she encounters him, and I kind of worked backwards from there. Like, and a big part of this killer's MO was that, and part of also what was reported about him was that he was so handsome and charming that was how he kind of coerced his victims to go off with him, because they were, smitten with him, or they thought he was cute or handsome, or that they could trust him. When actually I started peeling back the layers, I found lots of instances where women said that he creeped them out. Like they knew something was off about him. And so he used to approach women and feign injury. So he would be on crutches, or he would have a cast, and then he would ask women for their help. And a lot of women who like refused him and went to the police later, or women who managed to get away from him, all reported like, I had a bad feeling about him, but I didn't know how to say no because he was asking for my help. And I think that to me, that was something that really drew me into this story, because I can relate to that as a woman in 2024. And so I'm just imagining how much more intense the pressure was to be kind of like a compliant, smiling, polite woman in the 1970s, like I feel like if it's bad now, it was probably worse, even worse then. We don't even have they weren't even talking about that back then. So so this victim, this Seattle victim that Ruth is based on, was approached by him in a very public place on a beach on a beautiful summer day. And he had his arm in a fake cast, and he said he needed help getting something into his car. And there was an eyewitness, a young high school girl on the beach towel next to her, who overheard the entire conversation. And she told police that Ruth, or the victim that Ruth is based on, was irritated with him. And it was clear she didn't want to help him, but he kept at her. And eventually she was like, okay. And so in my head, I was like, what would have happened to that woman that day that maybe she felt like, had she said no to somebody already and felt guilty about it? And she'd like exceeded her threshold of disappointing people. And this guy swooped in at just the right time. And she was like, I was already a little bit of a bitch today. I should, be a good Samaritan and help this guy. And from there, that's where I started crafting Ruth's story.
Especially Ruth, I think, because you are with her, like as that encounter happened. Oh boy.
Yeah,
it's very bad. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, you guys all need to read this book. You really do. It's so good, and I can't believe we're already at the segment.
Yes. And I loved how fully formed the characters came to us in the story, and they were dealing with really important, profound issues in their own lives. And so then we got to see behind the victim, behind, what we typically see on the news for victims even today. So bravo. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it comes out in paperback tomorrow.
So hardcover, it's been out since 2023, but paperback comes out tomorrow. So excited about that.
Wonderful. Yes, and we have a giveaway, a really fantastic giveaway, because Jessica has 5 copies. That is right. Her publisher is giving away 5 copies of Bright Young Women, to give away tonight to lucky US viewers. So it doesn't matter if you're watching us on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. Just make sure you drop a comment. Let us know where you're from. We'll scour all the comments and make sure you tell us where you're from, and you might just be a lucky winner of one of 5 copies. So the killer question for our audience is, which one of Jessica's books has been made into a movie starring Mila Kunis? So drop that answer into the comment section and you may be a lucky winner.
What could it be?
Judge.
And speaking of paper books, the killers love our indies and we want to support them in any way we can, which is why we ask every author to come and tell us their favorite. Jessica has chosen Diesel Books in Brentwood, California. Jessica, would you like to tell us why you love this store so?
Yeah. So Diesel is just in case anyone is ever in the area or lives locally, Diesel is in Los Angeles and then it's in Brentwood. Brentwood, California is like a central part. It can be confusing, but it's at the Brentwood Country Mart in Los Angeles. And it's just the most ideal location because there's like a cute little coffee shop there and you can get a pastry and a coffee and just go browse the books, and they're extremely dog friendly. So I brought my first dog, my first baby Beatrice, before she passed. I used to bring her all the time, and now Franklin is a regular at Diesel, and he always gets lots of ear rubs when he's there. So we love Diesel.
I love a bookstore where you can bring your dogs and eat pastries. So.
Yeah, exactly. What more do you need?
So I just dropped the link to Bright Young Women in the comments, so you can order it from them as well as any others on your wish list.
Yay. And as much as we'd love to invite every amazing killer author to be featured on our show, there are so many and only 3 of us. And as you know, we also write some books of our own. Heather's latest, everyone is watching, is Big Brother Meets Clue in a reality show gone wrong.
And Kara's latest, Under the Palms, is White Lotus meets Succession.
And
oh, sorry, I was just going to say, and she has a new novel coming August 16th, set in Paris, The Second Mrs. Strong. I know she'd love a pre-order on that one as well. I'll drop that one in the comments.
So good, so good. And Paris is always a good idea, and so is Kimberly's The Paris Widow, about a dream vacation gone horribly wrong.
All right, you guys, check the comments for the purchase links, along with the link for one very special new release, Not What She Seems by Yasmin Ango. There we go. Maybe some secrets are better left buried. Jacinda left home as a local pariah, but when a family tragedy brings her back, she must confront her tortured past and a new danger in town that no one seems to understand but her. Yasmin is giving away one hardcover copy to U.S. viewers, so drop a comment if you'd like to be entered to win that one.
And as you know, membership has its privileges. So if you're on Facebook, check out our private members-only group called Killer Author Clubhouse. Every episode, we choose a name from the Killer Author Clubhouse hat to win a piece of KAC swag, t-shirts, mugs, candles, totes, hats, all of which can be found at killerauthorclub.com. But we have a winner tonight, and that winner is Glenna Gerhart. So Glenna, congratulations. You're the winner of our killer swag this week. So make sure you contact one of the killers and we'll get that out to you right away.
Congrats. And Jessica, we have excellent news for you tonight. You survived the Killer Author Club. Woo-hoo.
Will I survive bedtime? That's the real question.
I love it.
All right, you guys, and that does it for tonight's episode. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and thank you so much, Jessica, for being here. Congratulations on your paperback launch tomorrow. And also a big thank you to our friends at Book Reporter for sharing Killer Author Club news with readers. For all your bookish news and reviews, check them out at bookreporter.com. We'll be back again next week on our usual Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific with the one and only Rachel Hazel Hall, another LA author who will be talking all about her new release, What Fire Brings. In the meantime, please find us wasting too much time on social media, all the usual places, and for all the information you need about upcoming schedule, shows, etc., go to killerauthorclub.com. Thanks again for being here. Good night.
That does it for tonight's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to catch our next show live, we're every other Tuesday night on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For times, upcoming schedule, and to catch up on past episodes, visit us at killerauthorclub.com. Happy reading. Now get on out there and kill that TBR.